Today, we're gonna show y'all how we went from no budget to over 1 million views. I'll tell you right now, at the end of the day, it's always about your product. What your product, your narrative, your story, your content, whatever that's gonna be is what's going to really like sell what you're doing, especially as a cinematographer, as a DP, because I feel like our job is to enhance it. We're kind of like ceiling raisers as opposed to floor raisers, if that makes sense. We are here reviewing 2 videos. One of them, all right, so there's a little cop out too. One of them did get 1 million views. The other one actually didn't do too hot. And that's because we go into like TikTok and shadow bans and everything like that. But regardless, I still really wanted to go over the footage today. I'll go over the 1 million views really quick, really easy to really show you how much of content really matters and how to like really frame stuff in the modern age of like social media and vertical film. Yeah, so let's get into it. I'm gonna record it over here so I can have everything. I'm gonna just do a clap real quick, sync audio. And now that I got that clap, wait, let me do it one more time. Now y'all should be able to see everything. First off, I wanna talk about how important story and content is. So with Junior right here, he is a poet. He is a poet. A lot of what makes people like him is his ability to feel like his poetry is speaking to them personally. To really reflect that, I try to do the best that I can to kind of emphasize that intimacy, that one-on-one conversation. Junior right here, we picked this little gelato spot. By the way, this is actually not the main video that we shot. I can review that another time, but the actual main video that we shot was about a year ago. And this shot in particular was basically a, just like a reshoot, so to speak. I don't know if y'all have seen how influencers nowadays, they'll go on TikTok that have one song, but they'll shoot like 5 music videos for one song. It'll be just like one take. So that's very similar to what we do. We haven't got that extensive where we're shooting so many different locations. But this was another one take that we did where it's like really no cuts, no edits. It's just one shot and just let it ride. And it really worked for Junior just because I think how it matched his content. If we're just going off of the framing here, you have to remember that it's not a typical, not 16:9. So typically if I were to like box something for an interview or if it's a wider format, it would be more like this, right? But we have to understand that like we're dealing with video format now, and there's a lot of like headroom in the beginning and the bottom of the frame where we have to imagine symbols over here or description down here. The share buttons and stuff are down here. There could be some like TikTok or IG logo in the left corner. And so you really have to understand that like, even though we are shooting like all of this, and typically I would want, that headroom to be like that, we have to know that it's basically still there with the features. And so we have to give ourselves a little bit more headroom from the top of the frame to the bottom. And same as with this bottom frame right here too, you kind of want to give a little bit more room than a typical like close-up medium shot. I feel like close-up mediums are all kind of subjective, depending on where you learn them. But that's what I typically try to do. I try to like almost center him in the middle of the frame. If you have that box like this, I kind of frame it like that as if there's an extra extension from where I wanted it to be from that 16:9. And then from there, it's just really trying to make it look as cinematic as possible. We had this building. It was somewhat interesting. It had good light. It had good geometry. And so I just kind of like put it on some lines, some leading lines over here, try to frame it up in his head to get a little bit, a little bit of an outline. That way he's not completely on that black spot. Framing wise, that's really about it. Honestly, it's pretty much him, like I said, just standing there the whole entire time. That's actually pretty funny if you ain't noticed. A bug came and kind of like clipped him in the face. Played it off really well. I'm not even gonna lie. He's a great actor. Another big thing that for me to get that across, that intimacy with his audience, is the camera placement. Camera placement has always been pretty important, especially depending on what you're trying to shoot. The camera is eye level. It feels more intimate for the viewer. So if you have the camera here, feels like we're having a conversation. If the camera's like way up here and it's shooting down this way, typically you're gonna have your subject feel very small, very almost like powerless, so to speak. It's like low angle shooting up. That's when the subject feels very powerful. We shoot a lot of this in sports, where we actually call it the hero shot, where you're just underneath panning up and you're just like, following the guy wherever he goes, especially if you have a wide lens too. Wide lens, low angle, like you're just gonna make the subject feel massive. Lighting wise, it was like slightly in the afternoon, a little bit overcast. So it gave a very good, even look. We didn't have to bring out our own lights for this. We had the random people in the background walk across, very natural. All right, so this next video, again, we had no budget for it. We're using all of our own equipment. We're trying to get to that point where we're getting him sponsored. We have money for the shoots, and we can get more extra gear to help us out. For right now, we just don't have access to that, so we have to do what we have. And this shoot was a night shoot, which is pretty difficult for Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cams. And but we kind of make it work. I don't know, I feel like I could shoot stuff in a little bit 4K and then use DaVinci Resolve for noise reduction and stuff like that, so it's not as bad. Plus, for us, or for me specifically, since it's not really commercial work, it's for social media, it's kind of gonna get degraded anyways. So when it gets uploaded, it's gonna get compressed a little bit. So I feel like that slight difference really doesn't matter too much. And this is also the second time that I shot for both vertical and video in mind. So I'm like trying to compose both things at the same time. And even with this one, I like shot in a 16:9, but I kind of knew I wanted in that old school 5:4 format because he was going for that 60s, 70s look. One thing I want to preface is always to have your shoots planned. Always plan. Always try to do as much before you get onto the shoot as opposed to trying to figure out when we get there. This one was a unique situation where I recently just moved from the city that we were shooting in, and this was my first time back. So we were kind of working on short time, trying to get kind of like use me as much as possible before I left again to go to the new city I moved to. So with that in mind, I came on set knowing none of the context for the song. I was only given a concept by the artist, and I know the director, he kind of like knew what he wanted, but it was still kind of like up in the air because we were all just working on short time. I try to keep it simple as possible. I wasn't trying to do no extra stuff. And then again, I tried to match the feeling or the vibe of Junior's audience as much as possible. And I'll tell you the concept right now. It was essentially him writing a letter to this girl who basically essentially broke up with him, and he's trying to get back with her. And he has some inspiration. I'll show the inspiration of some of his ideas. That's all I was given. So I was like, I had to just work with what just made sense in my mind. Starting off, all right, real quick. So this little pan down thing, this zoom pan out, where we're on this older school street light, and then we pan down here. Very difficult to get that type of shot with our equipment. We took multiple different takes, and it was a struggle. We had a janky old school EF to ENG mount to an old broadcast lens. And then with that broadcast lens, we actually found an adapter for the Swervo zoom. So that's how we were able to get nice pulls out. So like pretty janky setup, but it kind of worked. The only problem is this lens is it's an old TV lens. So it's very aberrated. There's like, it's super soft. So you can see the reds bleeding out. Overall, it's just soft. It's almost like no back focus. We was lucky to only use this lens once for the shoot, and since it's an old TV lens too, like you're losing a lot of light coming into the camera. So we were down probably like a stop or two for this shot. The only reason why I don't like it is because it's almost a little too soft, in my opinion. Cause like, look how you go from, especially when you zoom all the way out where it doesn't have that back focus. It just like, it's almost jarring to cut from this very blurry image to boom. It's almost like crystal clear. Again, we tried this in 2 different ways. I had 2 different ideas of shooting the scene. Cause what I really wanted to do, I wanted to have the camera over here slightly above this brush to almost like create a little bit of foreground, and then use the same idea where we're starting up top and we're panning down and we're dollying to the left across all this brush right here to give that nice like foreground and sense of movement as they're walking up from this street line. However, the angle just didn't work. We didn't have the height for it. The camera was just not tall enough with the tripod. I opted out for this straight on shot from across the street. Again, I had 2 different shots of this. And as you can see, like how much we was really struggling. Like that, especially with this camera that doesn't have global shutter either. Like you see it shaking and stuff like that. But this was like an example of how we try to do the second take. Cause I was like, all right, maybe we could do it in post, right? Because like the lens looked really bad, a lot of blurriness, a lot of aberration. So I was like, well, let's just try the Sigma wide shot, do it in post. I'm glad we got both shots because it did not work in post. Always try to get it on set. Going from here and then post zooming out to this just didn't feel right. The shot came out decent. The only reason why I don't like this shot, aside from all the other stuff, is the way in which you have to shoot content nowadays for social media. You have to like basically present something and immediately give it to your audience. So if we say, yo, we got a poem, we got to immediately hit them with a poem, otherwise they're going to be swiping away. And so if you don't capture people's attention within the first 5 seconds, like it's basically over with. And this one is more of a slower, like I said, this pull out is all the way up to almost like 8 seconds, which is really, really long. And so, you know, we try to have it with the TV logo and the title to hopefully capture people's attention. But maybe that's the reason why this didn't do too well, is because the intro wasn't strong enough. This shot right here is also called a slow disclosure. Dang, I cannot say that word. Slow disclosure. This shot right here is a slow disclosure. Essentially what its purpose is to establish geography and where we are at within the context of the video or the scene, the story. Placement and geography is very important for like films. We're dealing with more social media stuff, but it works well with Junior because his videos, we are conditioning our audience to know that his stuff is going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more cinematic. And once we condition them for that, it allows us to experiment with more cinematic like techniques and themes and stuff like that. So it may have not worked as well here in this context. Maybe it was just a little bit too long. And also to how important it is to show your artist's face in the beginning. Maybe it just, you know, he's turned around talking to his homeboys. So like when they finally pan it down to him, you probably don't recognize who it is. But, you know, we learn from that. We go to the next. Again, framing. It's kind of ugly in the wider format, at least just for this shot. But you got to remember, we're also shooting for iPhone. So like this is kind of more of the frame of the 9x16. Like it's okay. We just needed a kind of a wider shot of our female subject right here to really understand that because we wanted to do that cliche, like she's on a balcony late at night and the homeboys pull up on her, like, you know, either with the boombox or throwing rocks at the windows or whatnot. We try to really replicate that. So we had her leaned over this guardrail, and honestly, this is like the best angle we could get it in. This probably, I mean, it's a frame. It looked okay on iPhone, but we'll keep going. Oh, but they do pass. I did have them pass in the foreground, just to give a little bit more. Give the shot a little bit more interest. Like that's probably the only thing that makes me interested in the shot is the people walking in the foreground. Going from here to here was pretty all right. Always be aware of like the little things that happen. Like we kind of got lucky where I could have this person cover the entire frame and walk by. But the timing of when she pulls away with the book was a continuity issue with the majority of the shots, or the majority of the takes that we shot. So we was lucky to get this where he completely covered it, and then she was still pulling back the book as he was walking in frame. It turned out okay. I don't know. I feel like we could have got the timing a little bit better. It feels almost jump cutty when I isolate this and look at it at like one spot. Or just with these two frames, it does feel very jump cutty to me. But again, just going to this shot, which is kind of like the major shot going forward throughout the video, it's just basically her POV, you know, from the balcony, top down. Here, he actually low-key is supposed to be looking at the camera as a true POV. But when I was setting up the camera and he was kind of going through, she was like right next to us, so he just automatically was like looking at her as opposed to like looking at the camera. But continuing, we have this, I guess you could call this a wide shot. It's not a complete wide shot. It's almost like a cowboy shot.
Medium full shot, cowboy. The medium full shot is arranged from the top of the subject's head to just below their waist.
The cowboy shot is typically old westerns where you had to have like a medium shot, but you needed to show their guns to show like anticipation. Here it's like very similar to a cowboy shot where like it does show his pants a little bit, but again, we kind of only have to shoot that way because of the framing. Like you got to remember that the framing is going to be like this, and most of this is going to be cut off. So you're really only dealing with this right here. You're almost like working frames within frames, and just being conscious of that as you're going through it is important. By the way, this is also not shot in sequential order. So we're not shooting like, okay, we're getting this scene. All right, the next scene, we're changing everything else. Like, no, we have in mind of what we want to shoot. And once we understood what we wanted to shoot, we'd be like, okay, this camera is going to be over here for this time. And we're not going to move the camera. We're going to shoot everything that we need to shoot from this spot before we move it into the next position. So this shot right here was way later in the night as opposed to like this one right here, which was one of our first shots that we did, just to keep that in mind. But again, I wanted to, as much as I could, have like a over the shoulder with Junior, it was kind of hard to get the camera that low. But again, I feel like it's just okay. It's not the best framing. It's something. Again, you kind of have to leave a whole bunch of headroom for iPhones. And even with him, he's probably going to be cut off. But you see a little bit over the shoulder, a little bit of foreground for the iPhone video. And again, I try to keep everything pretty wide for iPhones. Like we try to get a very wide shot and then a close-up shot. A close-up as shot as you can for iPhone. I mean, for social media. So, which is this one right here. So this is our so-called close-up shot. Again, is really nothing too special, just a POV looking directly at us. We blocked his homeboys up. Or blocking is where you place subjects within the frame. We just had him on either side right here, just to give a little bit more interesting to the composition, because we're just dealing with a blank street right here. And this is a little bit higher. Again, it's like, I feel it's always like changing with the type of headroom that you have. But again, if it is a 16:9 and we're trying to get that close-up shot, it's really gonna be like right here, which is a traditional looking close-up. So that's why we have to do it in that way. And then for the wide screen for 16:9, then I can actually almost give them traditional headroom for the 16:9. Here, he tells his homeboy he's good. So he's turning on the music. So it's just, even though there is luckily nobody saw this, but there actually is no tape in the jukebox. But just a close-up shot of him clicking the button. Pretty simple. Just had him on an angle. Nothing really too special about that. And then goes back to this medium shot. And this is a shot we kind of like stay on for majority of the video. Oh yeah, and then we did do a wide shot with this right here. So this wide shot just to give us a little bit, just a different look, because it is a longer video. And he actually interacts with his homeboys in this scene. So that's why it was important for us to pull back. I'll play it real quick. Right, so there was importance and value of them. If his homeboys aren't there, it's like, what's the point of even having them in the shot? And you'll see how kind of important that is later down the videos, because it's not their fault at all. But throughout the takes, it's like, if you notice where their eyes are at, it's like, what are they supposed to be doing? He's looking off to the side, he's looking off to the right. And it's not James' fault. Like, James has always been with us with every single shoot, but it's like, they weren't really given a role to like act. They're kind of just there for support. So if you have this wide shot and you're showcasing everybody else, you're anticipating them to actually have importance within the shot. And we kind of didn't for this one. But in the first wide shot, it was actually valid to have it in there, because it's something that the artist really wanted to have in it. So back to medium, then we have a close-up of the female subject. It's over the shoulder too. And that was it for this framing wise. Now I'm gonna go back. All right, the framing composition portion of this video is done. Now we're moving on to the lighting. Or should I go over the gear? I should have gone over the gear in the beginning. All right. So now we're going over the gear. All right. So going over gear, when I say no budget, you know, we just didn't have the funds, so everything was out of pocket for ourselves. So the only thing that I personally have, so we have a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Cam. We have the live mics. You know, we have the cage with it. It's my personal cage. Personal battery. I got one Anton. Although I do have it's a Rode NTG5 mic, but we're not using it for the shoot. I typically like to just live up our subjects because although the mic might be better, or the Rode mic might be better, uh, the best audio that you're gonna get is the one that's closest like to the mouth. My personal headphones for sound and just to like isolate noise so I know what I'm listening to. And then here's the janky tripod that we got. I forgot where I got it from. I probably got it from undergrad from somewhere. But this is what we're working with. Even though I say it is no budget, there's still money invested into this. But all that to say, it almost doesn't matter as long as you have something. Like really could be an iPhone. What really matters is your composition and your lighting. And without those things, like it doesn't matter what type of camera you got. You gotta be good at really sculpturing light and composing your frames. This is the old school TV lens, kind of bad. As you can see how much like light that we had, and you know, it still look really, really dark. All right, the other thing is this very baby Shinobi monitor, which I'm actually using right here to like look at myself to make sure I'm good. That with a little NPF battery. And then with this matte box, I got this matte box for free. And then again, this Sigma 1835 lens was also free because it was broken. I just fixed it. And also too, if y'all are getting irritated, being like, bro, all this, like this is a lot of money being put into this. Like, I guess comparison and context definitely matters. I come from dealing with like Amiras and Vericams and like Ursas and FX6s and 9s and stuff like that. So that's what I'm typically used to working with, and kind of starting my own business and starting from ground zero. Like this is very minimalist equipment. This is very like bottom of the barrel type equipment. Like, and I think that's really it for the camera equipment. Hopefully we have some lighting equipment somewhere. So now talking about our lighting equipment, I think all of our lighting equipment was also free. How we got it, I don't know, to be honest with you. My co-founder is a mod. He also has ways of just getting free stuff. We're very fortunate to be like lent things. So I think the only thing he bought was this tube light. But we were working with a tube light. We were working with because there's two weird looking lights that we got that are they're pretty bad. And then we have typical stands. These are those really flimsy light stands that that come in. And then we had one like C stand that had I actually like to tape or gaff tape our light to that because we don't have a mechanism or actual mechanical part to screw in to our arm C stand. So I kind of just gaff tape around it over here, and it's pretty solid, but it's like here and it goes out like that. And then for the light, I don't know if you can see what I'm holding, but I'm holding the gels of Zamad also got them for free. I think we used like 2 pinks and an orange to get the color that we wanted, because the color that we want is like kind of like that warmer tones, because our artist really enjoys the warm tones, and so we try to match that. So for this shoot specifically, we used 3 lights: the tube light as a key light, this really bad free light that we got as the backlight with gels over top, and then we had the other light. Here it is. I don't know. Okay, All right, before we go into gear, this is the Amaran 60D. I don't know how much this thing costs, and here's the other light too. So this is what we're working with. We have this Amaran 60D. That is what is backlighting our female participant or female actor, and then this is the light that we have two of them, but we got for free. That is, we're using the gels to backlight our subject. I don't know what this one is. If you know what this is, please say it down in the comment section. And I would just like grab my gear, but actually this is not my gear. This is Zamad's gear. He was the director on this. But that's really it in terms of lighting gear and camera equipment. It's pretty like low budget, pretty janky and unreliable, but sometimes you just gotta make do with what you have, and this is only what we have to create something. The last section of this video, we are going to be discussing lighting and how we used our lights to best light our scene to make our compositions look better. So with this initial scene, as you can see how wide we initially shot it, I knew the framing was going to be like this, and I knew that the wider frame was going to be something like this. I didn't have too much worry what was happening over here or like way over here. To light them as they're walking down the street, we had a light bar, and he was walking with them to give them a little bit of a fill on this right side to give it a little bit, you know, ambience, matching a little bit of that street light that we had. And then on the wide shot, y'all can't really tell, but we're actually using the Amaran 60D to shine and do a fill light on all of this foreground right here, because without it, everything was like super dark, probably like a stop or two lower. And so we just try to keep everything even. And as you can see, even with the bottom of how dark it is down here compared to what we're actually lighting with the 60D. But these are our two light subjects for this shot. Going into the second shot, again, we put the light tube is over here and we're shining it this way. And then we also are using that Amaran 60D to shine onto the building. Cause I don't know if we'll be able to see it. So, for this one, you can see we're using that light to shine down as a backlight. We barely see it. I kind of wish it was stronger. I was trying to figure out a way to get it stronger without pushing the light closer to our subject, because obviously it's already a lot in frame. Luckily, we have a lot of tools nowadays where we can change it in post, even though you always should try to not have to do that. But this is something that we did change in post, is the placement of that tripod. And then we have that, again, just the tube light being the key light right here, and then we have this backlight coming over here in the shot. And then I basically just use Photoshop AI to like mask it out. However, the problem is, I don't know if y'all can see it, but this right here, this joint right here, we'll actually even zoom in a little bit more. This bleed in light is actually from the gels. And so we're getting this like front light over here from the tube light, and then the back light is being filled up the street with the same type of temperature, but the gels are being manually held. So like we have to like fold. We're taking our paper and like we're folding it over. We're like folding it over the light. If this is like the light, we're like trying to like fold the gel over it because we don't have anything to hold it up. Again, there with it versus without. With this one, pretty simple tube light, and we're just shining it onto him right there. It felt a little bit overexposed, I'm not gonna lie. But this was kind of like towards the end, and we was just trying to like run through it. This was a example of what it was like. As y'all can see, the person holding that gel, the variance is pretty bad. But luckily, like on set or when we were shooting, people had steady hands, and we made it work. And if you're wondering like why I'm the DP, but I'm like running down there to like hold the light, is because I like to be involved with other aspects of filming. Because you know, most of the time, like these people, like they don't, they really don't have to be here. And we're very grateful for them to being on set and helping us out. So that along with once I understand like the framing straight too, I also like to try to be involved in different areas of the set to really understand how we can like optimize it like better. Like I felt bad because we had one of our friends who like or somebody who really wanted to kind of be an apprentice for us. We had him hold the light over here for a while, and then I was like, you know, you holding your arms up. We know how, you know, it kind of hurts holding this up for like 3 minutes, going to 5, and we're only on take 4 out of 10. So I'm like, let me hold the light real quick. And as I'm holding the light, I'm like, I don't want to hold this light, so I'm gonna find a way to get it set up. So we eventually strapped it up to the tripod, and it's just a learning experience when you're on set. Same with this over here. I was holding it, and we eventually found a way to basically like rig it up to where nobody had to hold the gels, which I wish I would have done earlier. But it's all right. It is what it is. Like again, it's a learning experience because I'm more of a DP, but the more I learn about lighting and grip, the more like efficient we can run on these smaller sets. Here is where we use the Amaran because I really wanted that classical 90s look. So we use the 600D back here to shine and give a little bit around her figure. I kind of wish it was a little bit stronger too to give a little bit more separation from the background. Because it's more on her like shoulders as opposed to the top of her head. I kind of wanted it to be like directly on top of her head, almost like Halo like. I think that's it. That's all I really wanted to cover today. We really covered the gear that we use, the lighting, how we utilize the lighting, the composition, and I kind of just wanted to go over everything in terms of like how we did our best to really elevate the subject that we had or the content that we had. Because you know, Junior, he's a very talented poet. And we're using all of our capabilities to like elevate his poetry, his content as much as possible. This is like one of my favorite shoots to work on, just because like we had more, even though it wasn't that much, it was like 2 or 3 people, but like we had more people involved in shooting, like the BTS photography, BTS camcorders. Like we had people holding the lights, you know, set them up, and like dedicated people, not just people showing up to like act and then they'll hold a light. Like, you know, we had our actors, we had like a BTS photo guy, we had the lights. And so to do this, coming from a city where nothing ever happens, like in Lexington, Kentucky, nothing really happens at all. And, you know, to see actually us doing something, it was pretty cool. This was like the 3rd major shoot. We can go over the first 2. They also did one of them definitely did over 1 million views, and then the other one is sitting around probably like 600 to 700K on TikTok. We could definitely go over those 2. Those were pretty fun. But yeah, something about this one I just really wanted. Maybe it was because it was a night scene. It was first time lighting a night scene with the equipment that we had, and it was just really interesting to like work with. This was the film session. I appreciate y'all for being here. If y'all enjoy the content, like and subscribe. This was my first time ever really shooting something like this. Like, you know, I am a DP. I'm typically the guy holding the camera. I do not like being in front of the camera. This is not like comfortable for me, but I did want to kind of like show that experience that I had back when I was in grad school and undergrad, where kind of like the director of the department would bring us in and be like, all right, let's go over your footage. Depending on like what y'all want to see next, you know, like I said, we have more little production shoots like this that we can go through. We got some sports cinematography, some of my old footage that we can go through too. Kind of explain why I didn't get into NFL films or something like that. So, but yeah, that's it. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Please subscribe and share with people that you might know that might need this content.